I am here to talk to you today about a wonderful underground franchise that you may have heard of. It's called Final Fantasy, and despite its name being Final Fantasy, I can assure you that it's far from final. There are 16 total mainline Final Fantasy games, and that is not including sequels, spin-offs, remakes, remasters, or ports. You have the main 16 games, and then you have games like Stranger of Paradise,
Shut the fuck up.
which is a Souls-like, 10-2, which is a sequel to 10, 13-2, which is a sequel to 13, and Lightning Returns, which is a sequel to 13-2, and then there's 7 Remake and Rebirth, which are retellings of 7, but psych, not really because they branch off and tell their own version of the original Final Fantasy VII story. And then there's Kingdom Hearts, which for some reason has Squall in it, who is a character from Final Fantasy VIII, and Cloud, who was also in 7, but also in Kingdom Hearts. The stuff is confusing beyond belief, and I say all this to ultimately get to my point, and that is, what game do you pick as a starting spot for within this franchise? You could start with the originals and play 1 through 3, but 3 is actually 6 in Japan, and 2 is actually 4 in the US. You could start with Stranger of Paradise because you just want to be labeled as an insane asylum patient.
So long as I live, who I don't give a fuck who you are.
Or you could take the route that I took and start with 15 because you don't like turn-based combat. This combat has got to be the most boring style of gameplay I can think of in my opinion, but I can see how people would enjoy it. Up until 15, you had this gameplay which to me not only looked dull and tedious, but it also played dull and tedious. Yes, I have tried a couple of these, and no, I have not beaten any of them, and yes, I do enjoy Persona, but that is because I like the aesthetic and soundtrack and storylines that the game presents. But as far as that gameplay style goes, it's a no from me, dog. But 15's combat, dude, this right here is solid. The music, the movement, the abilities, once you get into a rhythm where everything just clicks, there is nothing quite like it. But still, the gameplay did have its moments of frustration and a lot of skills that I just did not end up using. It's like it was teetering on the edge of having a great combat system with character action elements in it, but it couldn't commit, and that was its greatest sin. So alas, I finally found a Final Fantasy I could play until the credits rolled. I had seen some of the hype that surrounds this legendary franchise, but it wasn't until I tried the latest entry into the series that I had found it. I found my Final Fantasy. But before we talk about that game, allow me a moment to remind you that we are grinding, and I mean grinding to reach that 700 subscriber mark, so if you could take a moment to like, comment, subscribe, and maybe if you like the video that much, share it with your buddies, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, there is that wonderful Discord server that you can join and be a part of. I would love to have you there and hang out with the people that are already there. That's about it. And where was I? Oh yes. My Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy XVI. Upon watching trailers for this, I had zero desire to play this game or even watch anything else in regards to it. An old medieval and fantasy style setting was already a turnoff for me because I am not a fan of medieval settings in any form of media, and now you're telling me to play one for 50 plus hours? No thank you, dude. Then I saw gameplay and I thought to myself, hey, that looks kinda cool. I bought it, and we are now, as of the recording of this video, 73 hours deep and just got my very first platinum. But what does this game have in it that could single-handedly make me see the hype behind an entire franchise of games, movies, and cookbooks? Well, let us dive into it then. I'll start with my favorite part of Final Fantasy XVI, and that is the gameplay. Specifically the combat. I recently started getting into hack and/slash games and have yet to try some of the greats like the original God of War trilogy, Bayonetta, or the old Devil May Cry games, but I have played Solstice. No one here played that one yet? Just me? Okay. Hack and slash as a genre seems like it can be repetitive, but it really isn't if the game introduces fresh movesets, new enemies, and stellar boss battles. Final Fantasy XVI does all of this and more with wonderful results in the process. Gameplay is a hack and slash game at its core, and the story has the player unlocking new abilities through the summons, called icons here, which are a staple of the Final Fantasy games. There are a total of 10 sets of powers that each correspond to an icon: Ifrit, Phoenix, Garuda, Ramu, Titan, Bahamut, Shiva, Odin, Leviathan, and Ultima. The last two are only accessible via DLC, and Ultima isn't really an icon, but just as important to the overall plot, as Clive, our main hero of the game, he is able to call upon 3 sets of icon abilities at any point, and since the most recent updates, you can actually equip loadouts so that you don't have to switch out moves on a regular basis. There is a core ability that uses the circle button that comes with each icon, and then from there you can mix and match what abilities you want to implement into your moveset, as long as you have the specific move you want mastered. For example, I primarily stuck with having Phoenix in my repertoire, which has the Phoenix Shift ability, which acts as a teleport to dash towards an enemy and maintain pressure and damage, while an icon like Titan has the Titan Block ability, allowing you to parry attacks instead of having to dodge or perform a perfect parry with your sword all the time. Each one of these is viable in most any encounter, so there is no bad option per se. And when you combine all of this with 3 different trinkets that you can have on your build at any given time, you've got a recipe for success. All of this to ultimately say that this game is absolutely fire, and I could not stop playing it until the credits rolled. But obviously, everything I just described to you is just mechanics for the overall gameplay of the journey, but what does it truly boil down to? Tell me why this game gets so much heat for being a character action hack and slash game again? Oh, because it isn't turn-based, and instead is a much more action-based extension of the game that preceded it in Final Fantasy XV, where pretty much every Final Fantasy before 16 played with turn-based gameplay, give or take a couple that included action-based elements. 16 elects to fully explore this combo and ability style akin to Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, which kind of makes sense considering that both the DMC creator and some Platinum developers were involved in its creation. It is a game without traditional combos or a move list, but the fun comes in ways that you can generate your own combat style and combos. You have the traditional attack, dodge, jump, which leads to combos on the ground and air, perfect dodges, parries, etc. Then, as you earn new skills, these basic moves expand and allow you to incorporate more fluidity in the combat. The reason this game may feel so different is because it may have something to do with the developer being the same ones that created the smash hit Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn, which isn't the typical studio to work on Final Fantasy, or it could be that they just wanted to go in an overall different direction as they probably got tired of teetering on the edge of innovation for this franchise. Either way, I think it was a massive success full of love and care for the world that they produced. But what fun are the encounters if the enemies are boring to engage with? Fortunately, there is plenty of variety in both the fodder and the bigger bads. You have 3 tiers of enemies. Tier 1 is your standard foe with a weapon and a dream. These guys can usually be dispatched with a couple swings of the sword or a couple ability uses, and then you move on to the next. Tier 2 are the elites with stagger bars that you have to whittle down before staggering them outright and gaining some much needed time to inflict as much damage as possible while they're battered and bruised before rinsing and repeating the process. Then there's Tier 3, which are the mini-bosses that aren't quite as massive or insane as the main boss fights. These are going to be the hunts and the early bosses before the icon fights. The mechanics are basically the same as the previous tier, but they're on a larger scale, usually indicating that you are at the midpoint of one of the mainline quests. All of these adversaries are great on different levels, but what remains a consistent treat of excellency are the main bosses that cap off the end of one of the main storylines. Let me tell you, the power fantasy you experience when you utilize all of your icon abilities in rapid succession, one after the other, is unrivaled. 1 second you have these giant wings of fire sprouting from your back, and the next you're shooting a water jet out of the mouth of a hydra. And even as I played through the game for a 4th time to record footage for this video, I was still entranced and just sitting there with an ear-to-ear smile on my face. Clive by the end of the game is a complete beast that can shred just about anything in the Final Fantasy universe. Now my question to my power scaling community, where does Clive rank in terms of power level? Warning, you are not physically ready for what this game has in store when it comes to these icon battles. I don't think I have played a game with cooler bosses than this one in many years. Spoiler alert. In case you don't believe me, I am going to show you a few clips from some of these absolutely insane massive battles, and if you don't want to witness greatness, then you can click this timestamp and skip ahead.
Yeah, boy!
As you can see, this is the highest of peaks in popcorn action gaming. I can, and have played these sections several times, and each time I still find myself smiling at just how incredible these bosses are. I can guarantee you that some poor soul was responsible for coming up with how to top each battle every time. The music, the graphics, the effects, the stakes, it all adds and forms this fantastic set-piece moment that I will never forget. Not one of these bosses has left my mind since first besting them in combat. I'm going to go into more detail about one of these boss fights, but I need to explain what makes it so unbelievably cool. And I could go with any of them as I have enough to say for all of them, but for this section I am going to choose Odin. But in order to talk about this fight, I need to first delve a little bit more into the plot of this game, because otherwise the impact of how it all goes down will be missing. The overall plot of this game is that it takes place almost in a medieval-like land called Valestia, where fantasy creatures run amok, and it has this almost Game of Thrones tone to it. I only say that because that's what everyone tells me. It's like, I can't speak from personal experience since I myself have not seen the show, but from what I have heard, this is pretty similar in some aspects. But the biggest difference that sets this game apart from the other 15 entries in this Goliath of a franchise is the M rating that was given to it. It focuses on some pretty heavy topics like slavery and defying destiny. People compare this to Game of Thrones, but for me it reminded me of Naruto in a lot of ways. You have the basic setup where you play as Clive Rosfield, someone born into royalty and guardian to his little brother Joshua. Their mother and father are your typical good parents, except the mom is an asshole that hates Clive for seemingly no reason until it is revealed later on, and I won't go into detail about that. Instead, play it for yourself if you want to know more. In this world, there are dominants and icons, or if you want to put it in Naruto terms, Jinchuriki and tailed beasts respectively. Dominants can use the power of these gigantic summons to turn the tide of battle, and it is stated early on that they are used as a power struggle to rule over the land. This aspect is also, like Naruto, Joshua is the dominant for the icon Phoenix, and because of this, he is heir to the throne and not his older brother Clive. Clive is perfectly content with this idea as long as he can continue to be his brother's guardian while keeping a close relationship with his friend Jill and the best boy Torgal. The characters have plenty of time to spend with each other throughout the adventure, and they will bond and grow as the game goes on. Will Clive find who he is looking for? Will the villains actually get the ending they deserve and not the happy ending where they end up helping our main heroes? Questions like these and more are asked and answered as Final Fantasy XVI takes a more mature approach to storytelling using blood, swearing, and adult topics like revenge, but it doesn't address any of these in a grotesque or immature manner. It's a mature game. I refuse to go into any more detail about the rest of the story, but just know that it is hella entertaining, filled with great characters with emotional performances across the board. It truly gets better as it goes on, and man, that ending. Oh man, that ending was something special. Now back to the Odin fight. Again, spoilers so you don't get to see one of the coolest things in all of gaming. Up to this point, the icon fights have been giant kaiju fighting in the sky, on the ground, and even in space, but there is the final icon fight before the final boss, and that, my friends, is Odin. I can only think of two games that remind me of a shonen anime, Asura's Wrath and Final Fantasy XVI. 16 has the most insane one versus one sword fight in any game ever in my humble opinion, and there's two of these sick-ass fights. The first one, you are fighting in the sea. Standing on the actual ocean floor as Barnabas, Odin's dominant, has split the sea in half and you are just duking it out while large walls of water surround you. This was where I thought the actual Odin fight was going to occur, but no. Instead we get an even more epic fight in a labyrinth with multiple phases of just Clive going back and forth with Odin, not once using your icon as a gameplay mechanic outside of quick-time events. It shows how powerful Clive has become as Odin is finally defeated in grand fashion, just like all the icons before him. Just look at this fight, dude. Do you see what is actually taking place on the screen at this time? Do you see how bonkers this is? I love all of this, and I think you will too if you decide to pick this bad boy up today. I touched on it a little bit earlier, but I want to take the opportunity now to talk about the world and the variety of side content that you can dive deep into. Valestia is a massive world, and it wasn't until I had visited every region with every fast travel point unlocked that I ultimately came to the conclusion that this world is enormous with tons of environmental detail and variation. You'll travel fog-engulfed swamps, lush forested pathways, arid deserts, and desolate wastelands. Each area tells a story about what has happened. Beasts roam freely and bandits congregate and attempt to ambush you as you cross through each environment, sword at the ready. The outer lands feel lived in and inhabited by the familiar and the unknown. The main town hubs and your home base, the hideaway, feel lived in, although they don't have the crowd density you'd expect when visiting one of these hubs. People kind of stand in front of different stands and just stand there spouting random dialogue. But man, oh man, some of these locations are actually jaw-dropping. The boss arenas are dripping with details, especially the icon battles, but what else is new? I'm like 95% sure that Square Enix had to invent new colors because they ran out of them when doing literally anything in this absolutely massive game. Now, this may come as a surprise to those of you that haven't looked at the screen once this whole time that I have been talking, but if you can look past Clive's big-ass character model, you'll notice some of the best graphics to ever be manifested in a game ever. Everything, and I mean every piece of a thing in this game, has an almost absurd level of graphical fidelity. The way the foliage thrashes in the wind when there's a big storm set piece, or when the sea is split in half and all you see is the ocean just flowing down a wall of water. The enemies, the weapons, the character models, the icons, even the ground has a stupid amount of detail that makes this game so freaking gorgeous. I didn't even notice this until my second playthrough, but when Clive uses Aerial Blast, whenever he is near it, he will cover his face like he is walking through a storm. Not a crazy detail, but still, it's nice when developers pay attention to the fine print in their games. Whenever an elite enemy or boss uses a special move, it's usually followed with the most particle effects that you can put on the screen. Look at this. Can you even tell what is happening and who is who? No? Well, you will when you play it for yourself. This game cost $300 million to make, and boy do I sure believe that number. The music. Oh my gosh, the music, dude. The tunes on this bad boy get stuck in my head, especially combat music, because it's what you're doing 75% of the time. I constantly have the Icon battle theme in my head, and I know exactly how it starts. And don't get me started on Away, the song that plays when you play as the Phoenix Icon. I'm out here screaming at the top of my lungs like I'm a part of this orchestra and my life depends on me singing along with them. They nailed the music and without a doubt, absolutely perfected it. But then there's the quieter moments where things slow down and you have the time to just enjoy walking around and exploring the world. My star as the closing track is an unbelievable way to cap off an unforgettable adventure. You can even unlock and play different tracks in your home base of operations and just enjoy the aesthetic on offer here. Weapons and attacks sound weighty and meaningful. Each slash of your sword or burst of your magic has the right amount of weight to it. When using your Icon's ultimate moves, they have the base and crunch expected of a move that is literally cooking your opponent until they are charred to a crisp or drowning in a tsunami with no chance of escape. Usually accompanying these ultimate moves is a scream from Clive, and speaking of Clive, Ben Starr, dude. Props to this man right here for voice acting his ass off here. Rent had to be due the next day or something because he killed every single scene he was in. He's appropriately broody when the scene calls for it, raging in other scenes, and somber when the mood needs him to be.
Why didn't the Phoenix choose you?
She was every waking moment was spent trying to shoulder the burden that you and the Phoenix and
Yeah,
the
bro knows
Duchess
peak.
foisted on him. That's why I became his shield. To help bear the weight. But what did you do?
The voice acting goes crazy here.
You played your own blood and surrendered your son to his fate.
The other voice actors are no slouch in this department either. Joshua, Jill, Sid, and every character delivered on their assignments, and it goes a long way to making the story as captivating as it is. There are 2 expansions available for this game, Echoes of the Fallen, which dropped in December 2023 last year, and The Rising Tide, which dropped back in the middle of April 2024. All I can say is that the DLC does what it needs to do, which is give the world more lore and stick with what made the game special in the first place. What is that, you may ask? Everything that I just described up to this point. Music, gas, enemy encounters, gas, graphics. Arguably the best looking environments in the game are in the Rising Tide expansion. Look at this game, dude. Story-wise, the lore is developed further and focuses on the Fallen and this new faction that lives in a different region of the map entirely. Echoes of the Fallen centers on a lost relic tower called the Sage Spear that has a secret mother crystal in it. There are several logs that go into more detail as you climb to the top of the tower to uncover the truths behind it all. The second expansion in the Rising Tide focuses on a hidden land where another dominant has been revealed, and it's up to our cast to investigate further. The boss battles are no slouch either. Even the ones leading up to the final boss of each expansion have unique attack patterns and movesets. But the standouts are Omega and Leviathan. Omega is this giant fallen creation that has a banger drum and bass track playing in the background. Holy guacamole, is it dope. And Leviathan is another multi-phase icon fight that takes place in one of the prettier arenas in the game. Once the credits on the Rising Tide roll, you get a new set of powers and access to the Kairos Gate Challenge mode, a wave-based mode with 20 levels to it where you get to purchase items and buffs between rounds. A suitable challenge, specifically down the later levels between 15 to 20. All of this in the game plus minor things like new side quests, weapon skins, crafting materials, etc. This is why I have a love-hate relationship with DLC, because for every Final Fantasy XVI expansion, there's 3 Far Cry expansions that are absolute short doo-doo butter content drops that the developers couldn't have been less bothered to implement into their game. Shout out to all the staff at Square Enix, your efforts are not lost on the people that deeply care about quality over quantity, so the TLDR of this section is to buy the DLC. It's fantastic and worth every bit of the dollar if you enjoyed the base game. Just like any other game, nothing is perfect. There are some flaws within this fantasy, and while they may be minor in my opinion, to others they may be big issues. The first and most noticeable is the amount of cutscenes in the game. On an initial playthrough, this is fine because it's the story and you're supposed to be enthralled with the world, but on repeat playthroughs, this can be annoying as you constantly pause the game to skip the cutscene to get to the gameplay, and sometimes there's like 4 to 6 cutscenes before the next chunk of gameplay begins. I'd be doing this with my next and probably biggest complaint, the side quests. The main quest line is phenomenal. The side quests range from boring to mildly interesting. I just wish that they were more engaging, but they just are boring to the point where I lose interest. The rewards are minor with exception of the inventory slot upgrades, or the potency of your consumables will increase, but generally the rewards are not worth it.
Into the pot it goes, I suppose. Wait here, I won't be long. I present Chance's Stew, risen once again from the ashes of obscurity. Grab a spoon, Sid. Let's eat while it's hot.
I'm not hungry.
Well, it'll be too late once I've licked the bowl clean. Your loss.
It is nice that the game does inform you which side quests will give you an actually useful reward, as opposed to just a waste of time that the other missions give you as a reward. But that really is just about my major grievances with the overall package. I could nitpick and point out things like how it's kind of stupid how you'll watch a cutscene and then walk 3 feet, open a door, and then be presented with another cutscene, but it really doesn't ruin anything overall. Like I said, this game is incredible, and it was going to take a lot for it to be dethroned from my Game of the Year pedestal. At the end of the day, I know people are not going to agree with me on my take that this is my favorite Final Fantasy. Is it the best? Probably not. Is it my favorite? 100% emphatic yes from me, your resident Final Fantasy expert. For years I've heard that people have their favorite Final Fantasy. Well, this is my Final Fantasy, and I am firmly on board with the series from this point on. I love this game so much that I got my very first ever platinum on it, because up until this point I was an achievement hunter exclusively, but I just could not resist the thought of earning the platinum to my 2023 Game of the Year. Yes, I said it, it's my personal Game of the Year. And with all that out of the way, I think it is time to wrap this up. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning into the video today. We are at 650 plus subscribers now. That's actually kind of crazy, because I said I wanted to grind to 700 subscribers because I was not gaining any really. But over the past couple of months here, now at this point, you guys have been subbing to the channel, responding to comments, giving me feedback. I appreciate you guys immensely for everything you guys are doing. You guys just, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys, each and every one of you, each and every day, for allowing me to create content that people actually enjoy and respond well to. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great morning. I'll see you guys in the next video coming out here whenever it comes out here. I'm not gonna make any commitments to time, but I am gonna be consistent, and that's what I've been trying to be for the past couple months here. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a great morning, evening, afternoon, or whatever time of day it is. Thank you so much. Much love. Don't get lost in the sauce, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.